Welcome to Teaching Truth. Moses and the blessing. That's been and is the theme for our reflections this week as we've journeyed with Moses to that point in his life where he hands over the baton to his successor, to the young leader and his protege, Joshua. In our reflections over the last couple of days, we've been thinking about the fact that Moses envisioned and equipped Joshua. He gave him that vision of the promised land and all that God wanted to do. And he equipped Joshua by placing and laying his hands upon him. But if all Moses had done was to envision and to equip Joshua, then Joshua, in practical terms, would never have developed and grown. It was only as a result of Moses empowering Joshua, and we want to think about that in our reflections today, that Moses empowered Joshua, that Joshua did then develop the life and the leadership skills necessary, practically and spiritually, to lead the people of God. Now, just as empowerment was of vital importance then, so empowerment is of vital importance even today. If those who are younger in the faith, if those who are emerging and younger leaders are to become not only good leaders, but godly leaders. Moses empowered Joshua. Now, empowerment is one of those interesting words, isn't it, which is often used and bandied about, particularly in the business world. But what does it actually mean? Well, one definition I stumbled across, which expresses it neatly, said it's about being able, willing, and allowed. We read in Numbers 27, the focal passage for our reflections this week, that Moses gave Joshua some of his authority. Moses gave Joshua some of his authority. Now, this delegation, this giving away of some of his authority, was not abdication. Delegation is never abdication. Just like a wise captain who would not leave a less experienced pilot to fly a plane full of passengers by themselves, so Moses remained in the cockpit, but allowed his young protege, whom he was training, to try his hand, as it were, at flying. Now let me try and land this. Pardon the flying analogy, but to try and land this and be practical and to be personal and to bring out the importance of empowerment and the challenge of empowerment to us, particularly if we are older leaders. One of the things that over the years I've sadly observed in church life, in a number of churches and in a number of contexts, is that there have been older leaders who have wanted to, as it were, hold onto the controls of the plane and who have been unwilling to give others, particularly younger leaders, emerging leaders, the opportunity to be involved in a particular area of ministry where they themselves might even have outlived their usefulness. And Moses recognized that he had in effect outlived his usefulness. He acknowledged the fact that he was 120 years old. He was old, he was probably physically tired and emotionally drained, having led the Israelite nation through many trials and through many challenges. And Moses recognized that he had come to the end of his usefulness. And that is why he identified he envisioned, he equipped, and now he was empowering his young successor Joshua to be the leader of God's people and to take them towards the promised land. You see, if a local church is to be the church that God designed it to be, and is to be a breeding ground for younger leaders, for the Joshua generation to emerge, then I believe it may be necessary to get rid of those leaders who are resistant to change and are like a cork in a bottle, preventing that fresh flow of new wine from bursting forth. Now that may sound harsh, but it needs to be done with much love, much grace, and with kindness and courtesy. But like a bus, it is only when some passengers get off that new passengers can actually get on. And the same is no less true within the context of any local church when it comes to empowering the leaders, the younger leaders, the Joshuas whom God has his hand upon and who God is raising up. Pruning allows new branches to grow and become established. Again, let me be personal about this. My having had a foot in the younger generation camp as well as the older generation camp has perhaps been no bad thing. I was brought up with a brethren grandmother who used to recall many Saturday night tea meetings at the then famous Tent Hall in Glasgow. She used to sit with her hat on and play old Sankey hymns on the piano. But I was also part of a vibrant youth fellowship in Ayr, which went to Spring Harvest, and latterly here in Newton Mearns we took a number of our young people from the church to Soul Survivor, where we saw God do some amazing stuff and saw lives transformed. Why do I share this with you? Simply to say this, that I will never consciously constrict myself or restrict myself to any one generation. We need the Moses. We need those who are older with wisdom and with experience. And we need those who are younger, the Joshuas, with zeal and with passion. We need to see that beautiful blending, because that beautiful blending is biblical. In terms of my own spiritual development, my former pastor and mentor Noel, with over 40 years experience in pastoral ministry, often gave me the opportunity to lead evening services or preach at the midweek Bible study. And it's not that Noel didn't want to lead or to preach, but he was willing to trust me, to give me a measure of responsibility, to give away some of his authority. And today I believe I owe much of my spiritual development to the trust, to the responsibility, and to the investment that Noel, who was and who remains a Moses and a mentor to me, invested in me. When Moses brought Joshua onto the stage, Moses was establishing a younger leader who would accomplish a task beyond Moses himself, that of leading the Israelites into the promised land. And so we need to, as it were, get good at meaningfully empowering those leaders, particularly younger leaders, by investing in them, by recognizing that if God has called them, God will equip and lead them. We need to be those older leaders who, like Moses, would empower those younger leaders, the young Joshuas. When Moses brought Joshua onto the stage, he was establishing a younger leader who would accomplish a task beyond what he had himself achieved. Moses empowered Joshua. May we be those people who empower others and who empower the Joshuas in our churches.